So we'll get going.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning in, everybody. Welcome to the Sex and Suicide Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Evans, and it is Woman Crush Wednesday this evening. And we have the beautiful Michelle Westgarth with us. Say hello.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on tonight. You're looking very beautiful tonight.
Oh, thank you.
How are you liking your mug so far?
I'm loving my mug.
Perfect.
This is fabulous.
She's got Kim Kardashian's ass tonight.
I do.
It looks good.
Every woman wants Kim Kardashian's ass.
And you are going to train them to get in shape to have that ass, correct?
I am. This is what I do.
That a girl. So I've had some of your friends on the show before.
Yeah.
Other women that have had some phenomenal stories. And they said I had to get this Michelle on the show as well because she's got something for me.
Well, I hope I'm flattered by that.
Of course. I mean, we're just looking, obviously it's not a comparison.
Yeah.
We just want women empowerment, female empowerment on Woman Crush Wednesdays. And we want anyone to come forward that has an inspirational story like yourself, right?
Right.
So how do I get back to where this whole thing kind of started? Where's a good starting spot for this story?
Oh, goodness. Okay. So probably about two and a half years ago.
Two and a half years ago?
About where my story changed.
So let's talk about your original story then and go back a little bit further so that we can give the viewers and myself some background on who Michelle was. I mean, let's say maybe even 10 years ago.
So who I was 10 years ago was I was working in a corporate healthcare world. I owned my own business, basically helping people navigate healthcare systems. And I was an executive director at a retirement home here in London. Had been doing that for 7 years and just battling the healthcare system day in, day out. I was still active, like I was always active in my life, but it wasn't a focus for me. It wasn't something I was focused on. I was really focused on, career, this trajectory that I was on from childhood, basically, of kind of going through this path to eventually get into the family business, which is owning long-term care homes, right?
Okay.
And that's really where... That's just what you should do, right? You graduate high school, you go to university, and for me, it was you go to university with the intent to come out and follow this path.
Sure. So university is just a stepping stone to maybe broadening your horizons a little bit and then stepping back to where the family business is meant to grow.
Yeah, exactly.
I think a lot of people fall in those footsteps, or maybe that's just the old school mentality of thinking.
It's
I don't know.
a very old school way of thinking.
Sure.
I think things are really slowly starting to change with that mentality. But yeah, it's definitely what I fell into. Up till just recently, I was make the money, put on the pretty face, look good, act the part. As long as you behave yourself, everything's going fine, right? But
so do you feel?
Rock the boat.
Do you feel during that time that you were ever yourself?
No.
So you're
absolutely not.
You feel like there's kind of, whether it was by your family or whether it was by society, do you feel like there's a little bit of a pressure that's being put on you to be someone that you weren't even comfortable really being?
Oh, I can't say that it came from external. I think it came from me. It came from not having a confidence, not having the self-esteem, not having the tools to know how to build my confidence or my self-esteem, right? And not having that solid foundation of confidence and self-esteem leads you to kind of look for that outside, right? So you
validation from others.
Exactly. You take what everybody else expects of you and you try to act that way or look that way or play that part or play that role in the hopes that you'll be accepted or you'll be good enough or you'll feel happy and fulfilled, right?
Right.
So that's what I was stuck in back then was, well, this is what I'm supposed to do. So clearly something's wrong with me because I'm not happy doing this. But if I just keep plugging away, at least it's, it's what everybody else wants me to do.
Right.
And so yeah, that's where I was really cycling. But was it other people imposing that on me? No, it was me.
Yeah. Okay. Do you think that maybe it was the way that society kind of shoves things down our throats about having this perfect image? And do you think there's some kind of like a blueprint or programming? Because I feel like a lot of people get into these patterns where they're like, wait a minute, this is what everybody wants of me, but I'm not fucking happy. Like this, do you think that like that played a role at all?
It's a fear. It's a fear of breaking that. Because
Okay.
what if,
Okay,
right?
sure.
What if people don't accept what you create or what you say? What if
You're rejected.
yeah, what if nobody likes what you do or what you make? So it was a real fear of stepping outside of that. I felt it. I felt the pull all the time towards doing something different that was always there.
Right.
But I never really fully acknowledged it or even gave it any kind of attention whatsoever, because it was, it's not what's going to get you the house and the car and the white picket fence with the 3.5 kids and the dog and the perfect husband. That's not the role where I was being pulled.
Right.
Wasn't going to get me the things that society tells you and sometimes your parents tell you
Will fulfill you.
That's what makes you a good person, a
Right.
success, right, in life.
Sure.
That's how we judge success. So yeah, it wasn't until I was able to kind of step out of that and redefine success for myself. That's when I kind of was able to get strong enough to take those steps and really move forward to what I thought my life should be.
Right. So you started kind of taking control back into your own.
Yeah.
Sort of. Would you say that maybe you had a struggle with your mind and your heart?
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
I didn't even know. God, back then, I didn't even know the difference between my mind and my heart. I had no
Right.
idea. I didn't listen to any. I didn't hear my own voice.
Sure.
Right. It was there. I kind of going through what I had to go through. Now I know that it's kind of this inner voice. It's either it's your true self or your higher power of the universe or the child in you that's speaking to you and saying these things. Follow your passion, follow your bliss, do the things that you were good at when you were a kid, because that's what's unique about you.
Yeah.
Right. Do those things. Stick with it.
Sure.
And I heard those things, but I just kind of pushed them away, thinking like, oh. Right, what do you know?
I think a lot of people do, though.
Yeah.
They go their whole lives without ever even really listening to that little voice or that little feeling that's coming from here.
It's hard to give into that.
Yeah,
right?
it
It's
is.
really hard to just sit and hear that little thing, and instead of the louder voices that are all around us every day, all day.
The ones that kind of told you how to survive as a kid growing up, and you kind of molded to become that. So you said that you have a new definition of success. What is your definition of success now?
So to me now, success is something that can I give back? If I'm giving back in some way to people, and I know this sounds kind of hippy dippy and everything, but that's really what's going to make me fulfilled. That's my personal definition of it. Is doing something with my life that makes other people happy.
Yeah.
Giving back. Finding love, and that doesn't mean in a relationship necessarily. It means finding love for myself.
Right.
If I can maintain a sense of love in a relationship with myself, that's a success for me.
Yes.
Being able to wake up in the morning and not hate my job, or not have that feeling in the pit of your stomach of
The anxiety.
Yeah, horrible weight, right? That's success. Having the freedom to create something every day, something new.
Sure.
Right? That's success for me. That's what I'm kind of measuring my goals by now.
That's interesting.
It's really changed.
So yeah, and before that, the success was obviously what everybody kind of considers the American dream.
Money. It was money.
Yeah, sure. But so would you say then that you found that by sort of giving back to the world and finding whatever it is that your gift is to give, that's how you're going to find gratitude and kind of find success in a way?
Yes.
Okay, I agree with that.
When I started listening, right, when I started cueing into these little, hints, or sometimes, like, I call them sledgehammers.
Okay.
That the universe or your higher power or whatever it is that's out there, that energy, right, that's bigger than us.
Yeah, it's all about energy. You can't deny that energy exists,
It totally
right?
does.
I mean, you've got cell phones in your pockets. Energy obviously exists.
Yes.
So, okay, continue.
Yeah, so it wasn't until, I started paying attention to those little hints and shoves and sledgehammers that were coming and were telling me, do something different. This isn't your path. This isn't what you're meant to do. So now, it took me a little bit. It took me a lot to get brave enough to follow that path, because oh my God, like I gave up a $200,000 job.
That's a big deal.
To personal train and work at a store,
right?
An outdoor fitter. So like that was like.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how you made the switch from taking over, and you said you had a pretty glamorous title at the end of this, sort of before everything kind of flipped your world upside down.
Yep.
What was your title for the nursing home?
So I was the executive director.
You were the executive director. So you were like the top dog at this family business. You were one of the top dogs.
So I never worked for my dad.
Okay.
Yeah, this was a totally separate organization.
Okay,
yeah.
so you worked your way all the way up in another.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I never once worked for my dad.
Really?
That was kind of the rule, was you do it on your own, right? You make your own way. But I was, it's a leadership role. You're in charge of 200 plus staff. We had I think 70 residents at the time, and their families. So it all comes to you, right? You're responsible for that building.
Yeah.
And everyone in it.
So that was all on your shoulders.
That was all there. Yeah, that was all there, night and day. You're on call 24/7.
And you didn't like what you did at this point in time?
You know what? I loved the people. I loved working with the people, but I would find excuses to get out of the office, right? So I had us doing like planting the trees out on veterans memorials. We did that, and we did a dump tank, and we did so I was always getting myself all involved with the activities department or the marketing department.
That's fun.
Just to get, and so, finally, and banging my head against the politics of healthcare, right? The business of healthcare. It's so backwards.
Mm-hmm.
We got people sitting around not taking care of themselves, eating whatever the heck they feel like, getting sick, and then expecting
free healthcare,
right, to take care of them, and no incentive for the people who actually their whole lives have taken care of themselves, gone to the gym until they're 90 years old, and nothing there for those kind of people, or in the homes themselves, people who still want to feel purposeful. They still want a life. You know, but we warehouse these people, and then we just look after their bodies. That's all we do there.
Right.
So, I got really sick of that, and it really became just soul sucking. That kind of work was awful. I mean, the things you saw in those homes that went on that are swept under the rug, that nobody talks about. Sometimes you hear it comes out to the news sometimes, but not very often. Right. So it kind of after a while it got to me. Yep. And I needed to get out of that. And
so what did you, was it just that happened, or was there a few other things that happened?
Oh, there was a few other things.
So let's talk about everything that kind of happened at once for you.
So it was around December, and prior to that I'd learned that I was pregnant.
Okay.
This would be the fourth pregnancy.
The fourth pregnancy. Do you have any kids?
No.
You don't?
No.
So this was a fourth pregnancy. You've been pregnant 3 times before.
Yeah.
With, may I ask, was it a serious relationship or?
Yes.
Okay.
So the previous times it was with my now ex-husband.
Okay.
But then it was my husband.
Right.
And we had lost twins when they were 4.5 months.
Oh, geez.
And neither of us, we were both very young, and we didn't know how to handle that kind of loss.
Right.
There was no, on my side, there was no family support for it. I mean, the response I got from my mom was, well, you didn't want kids anyway, so we didn't think that this bothered you.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Very supportive.
Yeah.
My husband didn't know how to handle it. He literally took one day off of work and then went straight back to work, all the time. He was just at work. And I became very angry and very withdrawn, and just sort of internalized everything and blamed everybody.
This was after the 4th miscarriage?
These were the first 2. The
first
twins,
2,
yeah.
Okay.
And then we had another miscarriage after that, so that was 3.
Okay.
And then we got divorced, so long story short, the marriage didn't end up working, obviously.
Okay, yeah.
So we ended up going separate paths. And
do you think that the loss of these, potential children had anything to do with that, or a big part of that? Or
Yeah, it was a huge part.
It was a huge part.
Yeah, it was
okay.
a huge part. Neither of us knew. Like, he blamed me, I blamed him.
And you both wanted kids?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this was a heavy toll.
It was really difficult to deal with, and I didn't deal with it. That's how I dealt with it.
Right.
I just stuffed it all down, and you go to work every day, and you show up, you put on the happy face, you put your makeup on, you look good, that's
life
what
goes on, as they say, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
So you just suck it up and you just move on and you don't talk about it.
Right.
And that was that's the rule in my family, and that's how I was brought up. And it was the rule with Jeff and I. We just didn't talk, right? So so that ended, and then I went into a bit of like the first kind of depression there.
Okay.
I went back to my parents' house and basically like hid in books for all summer, and then still working. Still working.
But this is when you're trying to get through the fact that you've just been recently divorced, and so you moved back in with your parents?
Moved back in with my parents.
Fair enough.
That was fun.
Well, how old would you have been at this point?
I would have been 29 at this
29.
point.
Yeah. So 29, miscarriages, failed marriage, like that's a lot at 29 years old.
It was a lot, and I did not seek help, and I should have. Therapy, something. I should have seen the warning signs, but I just thought, pick yourself back up, go to work every day. I was so proud of myself because I managed to go to work every day. That was like my big thing.
Which is a big thing. That's a big accomplishment.
It was.
A lot of people could have just laid in bed the rest of the day and just
was really
gone
tempting.
into severe. Yeah, I know.
Really
severe depression.
But that was my first experience with kind of a depressive episode, and that's I look back on that now, and if I had sort of seen the warning signs or been a little bit more self-aware then, and properly sought the help, I think some of the things that happened more recently may not have been as impactful on me.
Okay.
But yeah, so then a couple years went by, and just drinking and trying to just get out of my head, right? So I was still working, but almost every other night I was going out with the girls and just partying and drinking and,
self-medicating, would you say?
Yeah,
been
completely hiding, right?
Yeah. Escaping.
Yeah,
yeah,
totally. And then I kind of came out of that because one day I just kind of got sick of it. People are always like, well, what was the trigger? There was none, literally. It was just one day I was like, yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, sure.
I'm done with this.
Yeah.
I'm going to go for a run.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I did.
Yeah, that can happen.
Yeah.
Good for you.
It's just like,
yeah.
So that's sort of strange, but again, I never dealt with it, right? I never really dealt with the emotions. So they were all there. They were just stuffed down enough that I couldn't feel them anymore.
Sure.
So yeah, and then I got into this relationship, a guy I'd met on Plenty of Fish. Just don't.
Plenty of Fish. We've talked to Plenty of Fish before. Plenty of Fish. Oh. You give it a bad rating?
I do.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Well, good to know.
Oh, it's a sad world. We'll put it that way.
Hey, it works for some. It doesn't work for others, I guess.
Does.
But
I heard my brother actually married a girl that he met on there. So some people are really lucky. I did not have that same experience.
One of my best buddies met I think he met his wife that he married on there, but their marriage is, we won't even go near that. But yeah, it's, headed along the same direction. Sounds like your relationship was. So,
yes.
We talked about Plenty of Fish before and about these dating apps and things. I mean, there's some people they work, some they don't. It just depends on the people.
It's hit and miss, and I think it depends on where you're at too, right?
Yeah,
on your own journey. I think a lot of people on there, like from my experience, what I met, a lot of people were doing the same thing I was.
Kind of running, just for companionship, but to avoid loneliness.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that's
after the other.
Yeah,
right? It wasn't.
Maybe like you're saying, it would have been better to get in a relationship with yourself.
Yep.
Rather than look for trying to find an additional person to bring into your fucked up life. At that time, it sounds like a lot of people, it is. I know mine was, so.
It's a codependency, right? And that's where I was at.
Right.
I had no idea how to be on my own, and I didn't want to be on my own, because that's scary.
That is scary,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where I was at.
It's scary until it's not.
Scary until you get comfortable.
Sure.
Yeah, until you're kind of forced to deal with it.
Yeah.
And I needed that, right? So, yeah, meeting this guy, and we were together for like 2 years.
Yeah.
And I thought this was the one, right? Like, this is perfect. Everything's great. And then, yeah, so I find out kind of October, November that I'm pregnant.
Okay.
And
new guy, new pregnancy. Maybe this one will take.
Scary though, because after the pregnancy before this, it was a tubular pregnancy.
Okay.
So I only have one working ovary.
Okay.
Is the long and short of that one. They had to do emergency surgery. So like the odds of me actually getting pregnant are like ridiculous.
Like at this time that you did get pregnant,
yes.
or now?
This last
time. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like completely, crazy that it happened in the first place. And telling him was interesting, because I was like, at this point I was sort of like, well, I don't know, right? I don't know. And I'm with the past history, you feel broken. Like as a woman, you feel broken. You feel like something's bad inside of you. You feel like your body's a tomb, literally.
Right.
So having those feelings again, and just being, just the anxiety, everything came back.
Right. Do you feel that now when we talk about it a little bit?
I feel sad now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a mourning kind of feeling now.
Right.
Because I've actually had the time now to work through those feelings and deal with the losing of the twins, the tubular, and this last one. I've now, I gave myself permission, after kind of my world imploded, I gave myself the time.
Yeah,
to
good
work
for you.
on it, because I had to. You have to.
Yeah.
You can't just let that go.
No.
So, yeah.
Some people do, and their lives get just even more and more messier.
Worse and worse.
Yeah,
you
and
can't
so
bury it.
no. So if you're one of those people that's kind of been running from person to person and creating these messes, maybe it's time that you do what Michelle here has done. And get in a relationship with yourself and take care of yourself, right?
Not easy to do. But
no, it's not. It's not, but sometimes it's necessary. So good for you for making those steps.
It is. It was forced on me. I didn't choose to make those steps. That's
right.
The funny thing of it is, literally, like he. So when I told him that I was pregnant, he. Really long story short, he essentially didn't want anything to do with it.
He didn't. So he did not want kids.
His exact words were, "I'll never be a father again."
Really?
He already had 2 little kids. He left his wife with like a 1-year-old and a 2.5-year-old. Red flag. I know.
I'm like, hey.
I know.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
But yeah. So that was his kind of thing, and the night of the miscarriage, he came to my house and he tried to help me through. He stayed the night, and then the next day I got a text from him.
Okay.
After 2 years, and this is the day after the miscarriage, saying he didn't think it was in his best interest to see me anymore.
Really?
Yeah, that was so. Yeah.
So he just fucking left you hanging.
He just bailed. Yeah.
Wow.
So I've now lost the baby. I'm having real issues because of it brought up all the other losses that I hadn't dealt with.
Right.
Then he did that, so now I'm like, my world's already tail spinning.
Yeah.
And then not 2 weeks after that, my dad got really sick and was put in the hospital, and that's when Dad's alcoholism really came to the forefront. That he was that ill with this disease that he was hospitalized with seizures.
Really?
Because he had tried to stop cold turkey on his own.
Really?
Yeah. So our family was trying to deal with that. It gave me a huge identity crisis, is what it ended up doing. I didn't know what to do with that. Like these are people who were perfect my whole life, and
did you know he had a drinking problem?
Well, we all kind of knew.
Yeah.
Right. We all kind of knew it was there. Like he always drank. 1 or 2 glasses of wine. Like I remember bedtime stories when I was 4. Like he would smell like red wine. That was he loved red wine. But we never considered it a problem.
Right. It was just something that happened.
And with alcoholic families, right, you denial.
Sure.
We're really good at that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was it was huge for me to kind of just realize, oh my God, like these are and it came really late in life. I mean, I was like 36 at the time, right? To look at my parents and see them as human beings for the first time and be like, wow, you aren't these people that I've had on this pedestal as all knowing, all right people.
Right.
And that was kind of the first little trigger for me of maybe the messages you've been hearing and the things that you believe about yourself from
the truth.
that aren't actually the truth.
Right.
So that was the first kind of little inkling of that that happened, and then I lost my job, and so this was all within 3 weeks.
Okay.
And I just I had no idea how to deal with any of this, and I went sort of ballistic.
So you didn't leave your job, you lost your job.
Yeah, they fired me.
Really?
Yeah.
Was it just what was the reason for that? What reason did they give you?
I've never really been a really good rule follower.
Okay.
And if I don't agree with something, if I don't think something's right, I won't do it.
Sure.
So in a corporate world, that sometimes doesn't go over very well.
Fair enough.
And it's a risk that you take. It's something that I knew and was willing to take the risk that would happen.
Just really shitty timing.
Really shitty timing.
Yeah.
Really shitty timing. Like it couldn't, but in the end, really good timing.
Right. Depends on how you look at it,
yeah,
right?
like all of this could be seen as like a train wreck, or
a
it could
blessing.
be seen as this huge thing that needed to like I was so sick that it needed, all of these things had to happen in the way that they did for me to actually get to where I needed to be.
Right.
So it's pretty incredible that I was like, it took this much.
Yeah, sure.
to get me there, right? But
yeah,
like I guess it was somebody I was watching a movie a while ago. It was called Finding Joe, and it really struck with me because one of the things they said was the universe is going to send you little signs, right? They're going to send you signs. And if you keep ignoring them and not listening to them, one day it's going to come around and it's going to smack you.
Yeah, sure.
And it'll ground you and make you deal with it.
Yeah.
And that's literally what happened. And so, I lost my mind and had to deal with a lot of anger issues.
Yeah.
And they all centered on this guy. Like I just focused all my anger and all my rage on
the guy that
this
just
one
dropped
person.
everything and just left you hanging.
Everything was his fault. That's
okay.
It was just everything was his fault.
Okay.
That's where I went.
Yeah. So you were blaming him for pretty much everything that happened for how long?
Oh.
Until you started kind of like looking at yourself.
You know what? Probably a good. I still struggle with it. Like I can't even say that even now I still don't have those days where I just want to like say it was all his fault. You know?
Still want to kick him in the nuts and smash him in the face.
Hurt him.
Yeah, sure. Sure.
You know? But yeah, at the same time, he was a gift. Like, so right now, my biggest thing currently in my life is to work on forgiveness, and it's a tough one for me because it means I have to get over my whole like self-righteousness.
Yeah.
What's just and what's not just, right? Because it's all
and expectations. You have to kind of lower what you expect from people, and it sounds like you put pretty high expectations on yourself. So sometimes that kind of translates into putting those expectations on others.
Yep.
And 9 times out of 10, you're going to be let the fuck down.
You are going to be disappointed by people all
the
time.
Yeah.
And that's not their fault, right?
No.
You're setting them up for failure when you've got that perfectionism in your head.
Sure.
You know? It's a crazy, crazy thing to deal with. Yeah.
So when you started so do you still hold a grudge against this guy?
Yes.
You do? Okay.
Yes,
so are you having trouble?
I haven't worked through that.
Okay. So is that the big thing that you have to kind of work on letting go of in order to get to this next step? Or what do you think is next? Like,
you know what? The grudge against him is something else. It's coming from somewhere else.
Okay.
And so...
It wasn't right what he did, obviously. Like,
Nope.
That's a really shitty move.
Not condoning it. Not saying he was right.
I don't think that's a man. I think that's a boy move, you know? I think that's someone
is.
that... And also, I don't think...
Fear.
Yeah, and also, I don't think that the universe will ever drop anything on you that you're not capable of handling.
Yeah, it's true.
So it might smack the shit out of you, but it still means that you can handle it.
It grounded me for about 3 months.
Right.
The whole time. I just, literally, from the bed to the couch, that's what I did every day. And I was lucky. I considered it a great day if I, like, made it to the couch and was able to kind of, like, sort of function.
You went into a spiral of depression, basically.
Huge. I wasn't even functioning. I wasn't eating. I wasn't working. I wasn't taking the dog out. I was doing nothing.
Right.
The house was a disaster. All I could do, like the only energy I could muster up was to get out of bed and get to the couch. And I would talk to people, like on social media. My friends would kind of reach out and be like, "Where are you? Are you okay?"
Would you give them any kind of a clue as to how you're feeling?
Yeah.
You did.
At that point, I had no barriers anymore. Like
Right.
everything disappeared.
So did you explain, like, I'm depressed, this is what happened?
I just said, I'm a shit show right now. Like, this is horrible. I don't know what to do. Like, I hate how I feel. I feel horrible. I'm depressed. I'm scared.
What were you scared of?
Everything at that point. Terrified. Just terrified of everything. I was scared of, like, it was like waking up to something entirely new, right? Like, all of a sudden, my parents are no longer who I thought they were. I was no longer who I thought I was. My future was no longer the way I thought it was. These people weren't the people I thought they were. Like, I couldn't trust my own judgment.
Right.
I just wanted to hide in my house and not have anything to do with the rest of the world at all, because I was just so scared of everything at that point. Like,
you kind of lose your faith in people, right?
Very much so.
Yeah. No, I agree. I get that.
Yeah,
so.
It was a pretty terrifying time, and when I did start to kind of slowly come outside.
How did you start to deal with that? Like, what?
Again, there was no trigger. It was just one day I got sick of it. I was like, I can't live my life like this. Like, you make a choice one day of, this is either going to be the rest of your life, or you do something about it and get off the couch. Right. So day I just did.
Did you ever contemplate suicide at all?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, into the way of, what would it be like to end the pain and the suffering?
Right.
But never to the point where I actually considered, like,
following through with it or making a plan or anything like that.
You hear people that have actually had concrete plans of action.
Yeah, that's a little more scary.
You know what? Here's the thing about me is, I wasn't brave enough to even kill myself. That's where I was at.
I understand that.
Yep. I wasn't even brave enough to do that. Yeah,
and you know what though? That's a really good point that I don't think we've talked about yet on the show, is the fact that when I lost my best buddy to suicide, he was in a really bad place for a while. And when he started getting up and doing his laundry and started gaining that strength, we thought that was a sign of him getting better, but that's a sign that he's getting the strength to go through with it. It's a sign of him cleaning up so that no one has to.
He's preparing.
Yeah, and preparing. So for those of you that are currently watching someone that is struggling with depression, if you're worried about suicide, there is that point where Michelle hit, where they might not have the energy, but that doesn't mean that when they start looking better, they're always getting better. So keep your eye on that. I think that's important to point out. But
very much so.
So luckily for you, when you started getting the energy to sort of get back on your feet and get outside, those thoughts of suicide went away. You didn't really think that much. You didn't think about that as much anymore, or how did that work?
I was given tools. I guess. I called the suicide helpline.
You did. Good for you.
And I said, I'm scared. Like, I don't know what I'm thinking. And that's kind of where I was at right then, was like, my thoughts were so jumbled. So I just said, I'm scared. I know I need help. And honestly, I didn't find them very helpful. That was my experience. I found that they gave me the normal jargon of, what kind of thoughts are you having? It wasn't helping me.
I think they're more or less when they're there, because I actually work for the support line, which is not the same as the crisis line. It's sort of the step below. But you're just sort of there to see how you kind of analyze the situation, but you're more there to listen than anything else and just be there for that person. So I understand that completely. And I don't think anyone on the end of that line, unless you've been through that sort of situation time and time again and know how to deal with it, and it works out every possible way in the positive, then maybe you're like a soldier there. But a lot of people on that other end of that line are just as scared as you dealing with that situation.
And
so I understand not finding it.
And at the time, what it was again that higher standard. I wanted an answer, right? Solve this problem for me. Somebody tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Right? Tell me what to do and I'll do it. But again, it's that external searching, like grasping onto somebody, a lifeline of some sort. Like, give me an answer.
Did you ever think about grabbing onto another man as a relationship?
Yes.
You did?
Oh my gosh. You know what? It was because I'm a codependent, because that was my pattern.
Yeah.
And because I did not want to be alone during this time, I reached out to like, not the jerk.
Right. Yes.
But an ex.
Good move, by the way. Good move. Yeah.
But not. But an ex from before him who I was still very good friends with.
Sure.
And he very smartly knew where I was at, has gone through something similar himself, and is just a really good person, and said, you got to go through this on your own. I know where you're at. I know what you're doing, and you need to do this by yourself.
So it was good advice.
It was good advice, and he stuck to it. He was.
Was he still there for you though?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. When I needed to talk, he was.
That's a good man.
He would listen. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a really good friend, a really good person, and we're still. I mean, he's one of the only people that I know 100% I can trust him.
Good. Good. Well, you had people, which was nice.
I did, and that was the important thing.
Yeah. So there's still someone to have faith in.
There was surprising people.
Yeah, sure. They always surprise you. That's the thing about people.
There was he's a stranger, and his name is Nick, and he, I was at a really low point. It was one of my days where I just didn't know how I was going to get through the rest of the day. Like, I couldn't see the way out. I didn't want to see the way out at that point. I was done. I was just so defeated. I was tired, and I was just done. And I messaged him and I said, he works in the mental health industry, and he'd been on my Facebook, but we'd never met. I've never talked to him, never had any, like, other than right? He stuff about mental health, and I'm like, great, yes, I agree, right? Yeah. But I reached out to him and I said, like, I'm in trouble. Like, I'm really in trouble. And I know you don't know me, and but what do I do?
Yeah.
Again, answer, right? Help?
Yeah.
God, and you know what? Like, he wrote back and he said, like, you're in trouble, and he said, I'm here for you, and you're loved, and I'll be there for you every single day. And he messaged me every single day for those 3 months.
Wow.
To make sure that I'd gotten out of bed, that I'd brushed my teeth. He asked me if I'd had a shower, something to eat that day. Like,
wow.
He literally saved my life because he was the one person that was a constant in this whole thing.
Wow.
And he was a total stranger, and to this day we've never met in person.
Oh, good job, Nick.
Yeah, he was.
It's fucking impressive.
You know what? People sometimes, I think the universe puts people in your way as helpers, as healers, as angels, and he was mine in that time. Like,
wow.
And I don't even know if he knows it. What he's done.
He might now.
He might now.
Yeah.
Hopefully, people like that are just, like, what makes you, the amount of energy that would have taken for him to care about a complete stranger just out of the goodness of your own heart.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, that kind of restored my faith a little bit in men, but also in people.
Good.
And, it started to kind of heal a little bit of that gap that was there for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then, another friend took me to Al-Anon, which is a support group for adult children of alcoholics.
Okay.
And that really helped. That gave me a lot of tools. Meditation at the Zen Center.
Yeah.
So on your advice, actually, because I reached out to you and said, like, what is this place you're going to?
That was a long time ago, right? That was before any of this shit.
That was actually in the middle of this shit.
Was it?
Yes.
Really?
Right in the middle of all this shit. No
kidding.
Yeah. And I knew I needed to, like, chill out. I needed to get a place to, like, understand where all of this stuff was coming up from.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? Because feelings that I hadn't felt for so long, I'd numbed them.
Yep.
All of a sudden, I had no resources left to numb anymore, right? I didn't have my internet because I couldn't afford to pay the bill because it wasn't working.
Right.
I didn't have work. I didn't have exercise. I didn't have other people there was nothing left for me to numb this stuff. So
Sure.
it was all coming out, and I was just like, oh, okay, I'm losing my mind.
Yeah.
Like I need to find a way to, I needed something.
Were you surprised to find that meditation is only gonna, that was kind of the way where it's still gonna come out, unfortunately. You can't run away from it,
I
right?
hated meditation. When I first started, I hated it. Oh my God.
What is it? And honestly, part of me hates to give up the secret of like talking about the Zen Center here in London, because you don't want to attract more people to fill that space, but it's a gift. We're here. We promote the Zen Center. Both of us have gone many times. It's where you can actually learn to mindfully meditate, more so than just kind of laying down and putting on relaxation tapes. It's a little more involved than that. Yeah. So I find it works. How do you find that meditation has helped you?
It helped me deal with the parts that I needed to deal with. So those dark places, those dark corners that I've been ignoring for so long. When you sit for 40 minutes, you got nothing else but that dark corner.
Yeah.
Right? So
yeah.
it's all coming up, and
did you fight it at times? I mean,
yeah.
So I mean, obviously, the goal of meditation is to always come back to your breathing. But when those thoughts when things start to come up and surface, did you give attention to them?
I was amazed at first at where my little head went off to. Yeah, and the stories that I would create. Like I would start with something here, and by the end of where my mind would go, it's this whole fiasco, and the world's coming to an end, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah, all this that you just built up in your mind over the course of like 30 minutes.
All in your head,
yeah.
Right? And none of it is probably ever going to happen, but there I am all cycled up about it.
Yeah.
Or the guy next to me was irritating me, and I was focused on that, or the birds outside were singing too loudly.
Yeah.
I couldn't focus, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was a real struggle at first to just sit and feel and allow those feelings to be there, and just kind of let them, like, treat them almost like as a third person, right? Just be like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, sure.
You go, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I got all involved.
Yeah.
And it was hard. It was really hard.
I think that what really helped me when I first started out sitting, and that's, I mean, you can call it Zen, you can call it meditation. When you get used to it, you just call it sitting. I started thinking of it like the bubbles, and this is in a book by, I think it's called Meditation Now or Never. Did you ever read that book?
I did.
So I think they talk about the bubbles in the champagne glass coming up.
Yep.
And those are continually going to come up. So in the beginning of meditation and sitting there, consider yourself having a glass of champagne that's constantly popping.
Yep.
And the more you meditate, the less it starts to pop and it becomes flat, right? And your thoughts kind of just simmer down. Mm-hmm. And that helps with anxiety, depression, but it takes time. And with this day, what you're doing, I think, is super key. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about that in a minute. But everybody wants things instantaneously. And the key to all of this, and the key to getting through anxiety, depression, stress, is patience, really, at the end of it all.
Yeah, and I think love.
Love for sure, absolutely.
I think you have to give yourself love.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something we're not taught. And it's something we're actually, like, discouraged from doing in a way, because it's seen as
cocky behavior, or
arrogant.
We're not talking about giving yourself a selfie every day, by the way.
No.
This is a different kind of love.
This is spending some time with yourself every day, and like we talked about at the beginning, building that relationship with yourself, with that little voice that's in there,
sure,
that's telling you really key things about yourself,
right?
That you, as an adult, right, we've learned, oh, don't listen to that, or don't do this, or that's not realistic. But in some ways, there's a big part of us that just wants to, like, play, and create, and just go back to that time when you were a kid and you had that freedom. Right?
Well, I think that's the whole part of the whole fun of having a family, is to watch the kids growing so that you can put yourself back in those shoes, right? I think a little bit. And I think when you're in that time, that is a form of meditation, because you're totally absorbed in that moment, and that's that good feeling. So I totally agree with that. And I think that, like, you don't drink anymore, right?
No.
When did you stop drinking?
It was after watching my dad.
That whole thing had an effect on you?
Yeah. It really highlighted for me that I have a lot of the same kind of addictive issues. And it just showed me what it can do to someone's life.
Right.
That here's a man who is well respected, well renowned, and smart and caring and intelligent and empathetic, which are all the reasons also why he is led down the path he was. But
right.
It showed me that if someone like even him can fall, I don't have half of what the character that my dad does. So I feel like I got enough issues. I don't need to deal with that too,
sure.
Right? Like,
do you find though that you start? Because what I found when I stopped drinking was I started to really dig deep back to what I used to enjoy before I even discovered alcohol.
Yeah.
And that took me back to my teenage years because I realized, holy shit, I've been drinking since I was 16, 17 years old, like every weekend, right?
Yeah.
It was just kind of how some of us are conditioned. And so I started trying to figure it out. And then a year went by of being completely stone cold sober. And when I realized how quickly that year went by, you realize how short life is. And I thought, Jesus Christ, I've spent almost every fucking weekend for one full day at least laying in bed, hungover. What a waste.
Yeah, it's
so
you could be doing so many other things.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Outside and going for a hike or enjoying something, a new experience or something. Yeah, for me it was more.
Did you find more enjoyment in the little things? Did you start to focus a little more on?
After I stopped drinking, you mean?
Yeah, or even when you just started meditating, or both, I guess. I mean, they kind of go hand in hand.
I started paying attention to them a little bit more.
Yeah.
I remember one moment, there was like a real clear moment, probably maybe a month or two into doing my meditations. And so I was still really new to it.
Yeah.
But I was sitting on my couch, back on the couch, and, something that, and it's still something I can't explain, but something told me to go outside, so I did.
Yeah.
Because at this point, like, I'm just doing what I'm told by whatever.
Like whatever's out there.
Like, God, just whatever comes to me, I'm doing it. So out I went. I'm standing out there in my backyard, and it's snowing, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm in my pajamas. The dog's looking at me. I'm like. So
what ended up happening? What did you take from that experience?
Like clear feeling of connection. And it was the very first time I'd ever felt anything outside of myself. So it was the very first time I'd ever felt another energy of something that I couldn't see, or a feeling of connected. It was a real feeling of like this energy of you are exactly where you're supposed to be because there's a plan that's bigger than you, and you need to just put up with this and learn what you're supposed to learn from this and just keep going, right? Yeah. And it was that very clear feeling, like as if somebody actually said those words to me.
Sure.
And I'm standing there going like, holy shit, what was that? Right? So now I think I am going crazy.
I get that every day.
Oh, yeah.
Every day.
Like, oh, God,
yeah.
Now what? Right? But it was the very first time that I'd actually heard, right, the energy that's the universe, or heard God, or people to have these experiences, right? Well, that was mine, and it came out of nowhere. I didn't ask for it. I didn't, it wasn't some grand thing that happened. It's just my backyard.
Yeah.
But that moment changed everything for me, and that was the moment where I stopped feeling sorry for myself, and I stopped blaming everybody else for everything that had happened to me. And
do you realize that was wasted energy now?
Oh yeah. I spent so much energy spinning my tires, like angry at other people and trying to get back at them and deviating little plans.
I was the exact same way when I was younger. Yeah, it still creeps in on me. I mean, I find that coming sometimes if. For example, if someone like vandalizes your car, which happened to me recently. I start thinking in my head, which piece of shit did this, right? Yeah. And how can I get them back? And then you just kind of have to, that was how we used to think. We don't think that way anymore.
It is what it is.
It is, yeah, sure. It's like, okay, we got to let this go, and that's fine. And, I do this for mental health. That's someone that probably has a mental health issue, or was wasted, one or the other.
Yeah.
But you never know.
Likely.
Yeah, and I mean, what have you, so... What tell us what you do now, like after we haven't even gotten into what you have become. So let's talk about that.
So at one point I kind of asked myself, what did I love to do as a kid? What is my heart telling me, right? And this is when I was able to actually listen, when the message was getting clearer, right? It wasn't all muddled by everything else. And so I just said, what did I really used to enjoy? as a kid, and it was, I loved being outside. I was a camp counselor for years up north, and so I would lead kids like canoe trips and things like that. I loved that. And I'd always thought that MEC, which is Mountain Equipment Co-op, would be a cool place to work because they're all outdoors and, there's yoga and there's all this stuff. And I loved it. I loved the energy of that store. So weirdly, they were hiring and I applied and
stars aligned.
Oh my God, no retail experience. I'm coming out of an upper management role.
Yeah.
Right. And making whatever money. And you walk into that. And I remember Martin, the store manager, kind of being like, so why retail? Why now? And it's funny because he just kind of rolls with it. And he's like, well, all right, welcome aboard. Right. And it's such a great place to work. And then one day I was driving by Good Life.
Yeah.
And I thought, hey, it'd be cool to be a personal trainer, right? That would be super cool. I'm gonna, I'm gonna apply. And sure enough, I'm Googling, and they're hiring. And so I went through that process and got hired at Good Life and started working with an amazing mentor who taught me so much about, his name is Nigel Reagan, and he was the fitness manager at the time at the Talbot Village Good Life. And so he taught me so much about assessment and movement and it was him that really told me, to be a good personal trainer, you either have it or you don't. You either can see how you can either talk to people at a certain level and get them to kind of buy in and without basically, well, you're fat, you need to get on a treadmill.
Right.
No, it's, see the problem that's sitting there, right?
Sure.
See more than just that. And to see body movement and mechanics, things like that. So I found out, well, this is something I'm actually good at. And I love it. I love, running boot camps and leading yoga classes. And I recently just, my boyfriend helped me redecorate my basement. So I moved all the furniture out of my basement and we've done a home yoga and meditation space in
cool.
there. Yeah, so that's kind of my homage to the Zen Center and my gratitude for everything that I've kind of learned through them.
Very cool.
And then yoga is just, I do it every day and now I meditate every day. And
do you find that they're different? Because a lot of people, I think people have this idea of what meditation really is, and you've kind of gone to see what the real deal is. I've gone to see what the real deal is.
Yeah.
So when people say, oh, I don't meditate, but I go to yoga, what do you say to people like that?
You know what I say? It's nowhere close to the same thing.
Okay.
Yoga is a tool to get into a meditative state. Right. Yoga can help you become more aware of your body because a big part of that meditation is being able to kind of have that intuitive sense of what's going on inside, right? Yoga, way back when, yoga was a tool to get into that state.
Really?
Interesting. It was never created to be stretchy, bendy, flexibility, strengthening. That's not the point of yoga.
I had no idea.
Yeah, yoga was always created, and if you go into some of the poses in yoga, we always think light and happiness and hippy-dippy stuff when
Namaste
you think of...
yeah,
right? No, it's not all about that. It's about dark places. It's about dark stories. It's about confronting the mirror of yourself that sometimes we don't want to confront. That's yoga. It's going into poses that are uncomfortable, that don't feel good, and you got to breathe through that stuff.
Right, sure.
And just like in meditation,
you have to breathe through that pain. There's suffering in the world. You can sit through a little bit of back pain.
Exactly.
Or leg pain. Yeah.
So that's what they both do have in common, but yoga in and of itself is a tool to get into a meditative state if it's used properly.
So have you thought about combining the two of these and doing your own little thing? Do you do that? Or
I do that, actually.
You do?
Yeah.
I'll have to come for one of your classes.
They're so much fun.
Yeah.
Every boot camp class, even if we're doing tire flips and ropes and whatever, we always spend 5 minutes at the end of every class to do a meditation.
Good.
And it's interesting with newbies, right? To see them and they're fidgeting and they're all over
Struggle
the place.
a little bit, eh?
Oh my God,
yeah.
Right? They got their eyes closed most of the time and they want to lie down and nope, keep those eyes open, right?
I think most people have that confused though. I think that's a common thing that people think when you're meditating, you close your eyes. Well, do you go through life with your eyes closed? Because I know I don't.
Yeah.
So the idea is to be able to bring your meditative state into everyday life. So you have to keep your eyes open for that.
And the gym is perfect. Like the gym we do this in is there's noise, there's loud music, there's people running all over the place. Sometimes there's kids places, right?
So it's hard to calm yourself.
Chaos,
yeah.
Right?
Life
you
is
gotta
chaos.
sit there and find that center in the middle of all of that.
Yeah.
So it's like the perfect place to practice.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's really neat to kind of watch people go through the progression too, because I can so relate to them when I first started, right?
Right.
I can totally see it on them where they're just fidgety and they're getting annoyed at the person sitting, but they're pissed off at me for making them do this.
Yeah.
Or, you know.
I feel the same way, because I feel like as soon as you start to overcome an anxiety disorder or get out of depression and things, when you start talking to someone and you're actually present, you can see the anxiousness in their, like behind their eyes, or you can see the depressive state. You can start to see maybe, and it's maybe the
people.
thing, yeah, you can start to see people, but maybe the things that you and I have gone through are so that you can do in your job and whatever, my job, whatever, you can sense these things that people are, you used to feel, and you can pick up on it and maybe help that person.
It's, so that moment out in my backyard.
Yeah.
Ever since then, people are different and colors are different and things are different. I know it sounds crazy.
No, it's cool. I think it's
different.
Cool. Yeah.
It's different. You hear about these kind of things happening, but I never thought that it would actually happen to me. And at the time when I most needed something, you know, I needed it. And so now, yeah, I look at people differently, because there are, you know, in my personal belief, there are people that are not necessarily, maybe they're not evil, but their intentions are not the best.
No.
And
that's sickness. I still think that's mental illness.
All over me, right?
Yeah.
Like, narcissism,
yeah.
right? That is.
Yeah,
that's
they
coming
are
from
still
a place of hurt.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
But I never saw that before, and I was always put myself in the place of being a victim, right? So I would, eventually the story would always be like, so that I could blame somebody else for being like, this is your fault that I feel terrible.
Sure. And I think that's a common thing that people do.
Without being aware of it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's a really hard thing to start taking responsibility for, especially if something shitty happens to you. No one wants to think that they brought this on themselves when it's in a shitty, you know, especially if your heart's in the right place. But shitty things happen to good people, man. I mean, it's life too.
There's a story in Finding Joe, that movie again, where
I'm gonna have to watch this movie now.
It's an awesome movie. Finding Joe. It's about Joseph Campbell, and it describes the hero's journey. And there's a point in this movie where it talks about confronting your own demon. Right? You got to slay a dragon, and it shows that this dragon that you have to slay, it's a mirror. It's you.
Yeah.
Right? It's the things about you that aren't helpful to yourself, to your own happiness, that you're self-sabotaging with, right?
Yeah. And the states of mind that you put yourself in. Yeah.
Your belief system.
Absolutely.
Right? What do you really think about yourself? What's your core belief? What's that one core belief? And how is that operating throughout your life? Because if it's I'm not good enough, which it was for me, right? And still kind of comes through every once in a while. You have to see how that operates and kind of infects your whole life.
Right. Yeah, it can. It can be contagious for sure.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Interesting. So you mentioned, I heard boyfriend come up.
Yeah.
So you're in a relationship now?
I am.
Okay,
yeah,
so there's a happy ending to this whole story.
Fairly new. It's fairly new.
Okay. How's the sex?
It's good.
Good.
Good. Really
all right.
Good.
Well, that's good.
That is good.
Yeah.
It's been 2 years for me, where I just stayed single.
I was going to ask you about that. I mean, good for you for obviously putting the work into yourself. Does the fact that you had sort of some miscarriages when you're having a sexual experience, does that take a toll on you in that moment? Do you ever think about that, or are you able to put everything that's kind of been? I guess what I'm asking is, is there any negative association with sexual activity because of some of the pain that you went through in the past?
There is negative association, but not because of the miscarriage.
Okay.
It would be from my childhood.
Okay.
And abuse and things like that. That's where that but it's a numbing. I can desensitize. So
right.
I can go someplace else.
Okay.
It's a skill you kind of learn, I think, when young kids go through things.
Well, that's something that we should touch on at some point in time, so we'd love to have you back, but that sounds like it could be a whole other
It's a whole other
episode.
Thing. That's a whole other thing, yeah. And so, yeah, but you know, people take hurt things.
Yep.
And I think to be sexually open with someone, you're letting somebody into, especially for women, I think essentially, you're letting someone into a very
literally,
into a very
your body and your
place.
temple,
Yeah,
sure,
you know,
yeah.
So you have to be emotionally, I think, ready for that kind of intimacy too. And if you're not, you have to really work through the why of that,
right?
You know, before you get into something like that, because
so this was a big step for you.
Yeah. It was scary, and it just kind of fell out of nowhere, right? It wasn't something that I was looking for at all.
That's usually when the best stuff happens, though.
Yeah, I mean, he's been really helpful. We both deal with depression. We both have been in really bad places.
So you can be good support systems during those times.
Yeah.
Provided they don't sync up.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. That's the trick, is not, when he's in a bad place, not letting myself get sucked back in.
Right.
And
putting your tools to work. Yeah. Sure.
So I think, it's still really, really new, but it's it's like I say to people, you know what, if you believe enough and you follow the signs, I'm not going to say that everything's going to turn out roses, because sometimes it's not.
Sure.
Sometimes the universe is going to use you for the benefit of other people, and you might not really like what comes your way. And maybe it won't be that I am able to have children and a family. Maybe that's not in the cards for me. But now I'm in a place where I can actually accept that might be a reality. Whereas before, that would have grounded me.
Right.
So,
yeah.
I think
well, good
that's
for you.
Kind of where I'm at now, anyway.
Wow. Well, this has been a very powerful talk. So your boot camps that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Do you want to let everyone know sort of how those, if someone wanted to sign up and someone wanted, how do we do that?
Yeah. So if you go to my page, which I think, are we linking that? Yeah. So if you go to my page, it's Michelle Westgarth Fitness, and I'm a wellness coach, and we do classes. I do a 6:30 class at Good Life, and I do evening classes and a yoga class at my home studio as well. So best way to kind of do it is head over to my page and check out the classes.
Okay.
And send me a message. So,
awesome.
Yeah, that's the best way.
Well, I know I'll be partaking in one of these classes in the future, so
that'll be fun.
Absolutely. So Facebook page is the best way to reach you.
That's the best way to reach me. Yep.
Okay.
I a year ago I set myself a goal that I would disconnect from a lot of my phone little tether. So Facebook is the best way to get me.
Okay, perfect. Other than that, I think you had some really good messages. Is there anything that you really would want to share to empower women that have yet to go through some of these things? Because our demographic on here is, there's a lot of people from 19, 18 years old up until 40 years old. But some of the people that are watching, they might think, miscarriages don't apply to me, or depression doesn't apply to me. Well, guess what? Life's going to throw some shit at you, whether you like it or not. So it's always wise to listen to people that have gone through the shit, right?
Yeah.
So would you have any messages for those younger women out there, how to empower themselves if they're going off the path right now and they're just not following this?
I think if I needed to hear a voice back when I was like 18, 20, it would be, the big thing, take responsibility.
Take responsibility?
Take responsibility for what's going on inside yourself, and your own actions, and really just be aware. Really spend some time to kind of get in touch with yourself. I think the thing I needed to hear when I was a kid would have been, stop blaming everybody else for stuff that's going wrong in your life. There's something that you're doing that's bringing this all on, so you got to figure out what that is. Sure.
So you've got to kind of figure out what pattern that is and break your own pattern.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the hardest things to do, is taking responsibility for the fuck ups in your life. But once you do, there's really nothing that can stop you.
There's a sense of empowerment.
It really is.
Yeah, you come out
awesome,
better and stronger for it.
Red flags for women that are maybe in some bad relationships. What would you wish you have been told when you were in some of those shitty situations?
Definitely some of the narcissist sort of behaviors. Things like, it's overwhelmingly good at first. Like, nothing seems to be going wrong. That's a red flag, and I never knew that before. I always thought, oh, this is just perfect, right? No, that's actually a red flag. That's somebody who's putting on kind of an act.
Sure.
Nothing's ever that perfect. So, if it seems too good to be true, it is. And you kind of got to follow
Sorry, folks.
that.
Sorry to burst your bubble. What you're saying is, if anybody's looking like nobody's perfect, and it's almost better to be upfront and honest from the beginning.
It really is, and accept the other person's faults, and don't hide your own. Right? Walk into a relationship owning everything that's right and wrong about you, and not putting on the dog and pony show like you're perfect, because you're only going to lead that person for disappointment in you later on. And and the same thing if you're looking for perfect in somebody else. It's not out there. There's no perfect. But you gotta the best quote I heard was, throw away everything you think that you want and just ask. Just ask, the energy that's out there, whether it's the universe or God or whatever the heck that thing is. Just ask it to bring you the tools or the path. Ask it to show you the path, right? But don't make demands on it. Because it's not about what we want. Yeah,
and it's never going to happen in the time you want it either. Nope. Okay. Well, I think that's it for tonight. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for coming. This was very educational. And I love that we got to talk about Zen a little bit. Yeah. That was really cool.
Oh, it's a fabulous place.
Because it's, it's something that I'll do for the rest of my life. Is it something that,
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a part of my daily routine now. And I know when I don't do it, it's bad.
You can start to feel it, for sure. So thank you, Michelle, for coming. And thank you for everybody that tuned in to this week's Women Crush Wednesday. We will see you again. Actually, we've got some surprises coming up this weekend. So we're going to say goodnight right now, but we will see you again soon. So thanks for watching, guys. Take care.